Spontaneous speaking video 77. Alright, what's up everyone? I'm here to talk about assimilations. So, I discovered that I haven't really discovered it recently, but one of the things that I've been self-reflecting on, whatever, is that I run a ton of assimilations in my head before I bring them into reality. One quick example could be that I have a playlist. I have several playlists on my channel so that I could keep things organized. For those of you who watch, you may have noticed, but I have a playlist of my in-class speeches. I also have, some with maybe I think I have one of my sermons that I've preached on here as well. And on that playlist, in those videos, when I used to give a lot of my speeches in class, then a lot of people asked me oftentimes hey Denzel, how do you prepare for your speeches? Not saying that I'm the best speaker. I honestly didn't think so, but I wouldn't say I was the worst either, but I would like to think that I was pretty good. And people told me that a lot, and they asked me hey, so how do you prepare for your speeches? There was an ISFJ who said that she would literally practice and rehearse over and over and over again before she would go up for days on end. There was an ENFP who just said that he just kind of would go up there and kind of pretty much wing it, and it would work. And so when we were all talking about it, then I was yo, honestly, my method is gonna probably sound so strange, but it's just true. And I picked up on it a while ago. I don't practice for my speeches, at least not physically. What I do is that I ponder. Okay, so the morning of the speech, then what I happen to do is, as I'm brushing my teeth and everything, because I try to brush my teeth every morning. I do brush my teeth every morning. What I try to do is brush my teeth every night. But anyway, segue. When I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, then I actually envision me giving the speech. As I'm brushing my teeth or looking into the mirror or whatever, the morning of that speech, I'm envisioning me getting up, after the teacher calls me, or when, the person who's before me has finished and everyone's clapping or whatever, and me going up, setting up the joke that I might tell as I'm setting up whatever the situation may be. And then just pretty much how I'll start. I envision the speech and how things will play out, and it's kind of I practice it in my head, but I do it once, maybe twice. Maybe if it's the first time didn't go so hot because I saw that this is probably going to go wrong, then I kind of rewind and then I redo it in my head. But usually, yeah, I kind of envision what I'm going to do first. And then after that, I don't really think about it anymore. Then when the time comes for me to deliver the speech, I kid you not, this is how it happens. I'm able to deliver the speech effectively in the way that I envisioned it in my head. And the stuff that may go a little bit haywire, the stuff that probably I wasn't able to predict in my head or in the simulation, I'm able to finesse with it. I'm able to roll with that punch for the most part. So, if a projector wasn't working well or something like that, then it's okay, I'm able to be in the moment. And act on my feet. So I have a hypothesis or a theory that this is probably a very NISE kind of thing, where it's you rehearse it, you do it in your head, and then because SE is my tertiary function, then I am not the best at maneuvering on my feet, but if I have to, as long as I've done enough NI work, then my SE should be able to fill in the holes that I might have skipped over, or might not have or might have popped up, stuff like that. So all that being said, I realized that I do that with a lot of things in life. almost everything. Like, before I do videos, I won't envision the whole video, but I'll envision like, like a little bit, enough, the scenery, whatever. And then I kind of like have like a vision of how it's supposed to go, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I just make it happen. I do this with conversations. Like, I will run an simulation in my head, like, okay, if I go and talk to the person, I start off like this, and I do this, they might respond this way, and then I might do this, and then this, and this, and that. This is the back and forth. That's not good, though. I don't like where this is going. So let's rewind. All right, so go all the way back. Now, instead of saying this, maybe I'd say this instead. And once again, you can't really like predict every single thing that somebody's going to say. You can ballpark it, but you can't predict like everything. You have to have some type of like, acting on your feet with that. And I would guess that INJs, like, they predict, like they try to like, gauge like the whole situation, like as much as they can before they go into it, because they don't trust enough of their SE because it's inferior. And so, yeah. But yeah, so that's I've realized that for myself, and I realized that I do that with a lot of different things, and that's one of the ways that I use personal development as well. For personal development, I run simulations in my head. I think of X-Men at the end of X-Men Apocalypse when they were fighting. Man, I cannot remember the names of those machines, and I want to look it up, but at the same time, it's kind of like cold out here, so it's like, never mind. I'm not going to take my hands out of my pocket to do that. But well, they were fighting these machines pretty much, and the machines were made by their company or like the school for practice, so that when like they're facing real enemies, they'll know how to like, face those enemies. I think in the same sense, when we're running a simulation, that's kind of like what we're doing. There's a lot of people who they are okay with finessing through life, and like, oh, if there's a wall, they have the ability to be able to get around it if necessary. They're able to, find a way around like, life's walls. However, there's some who don't even like think about it, and they just like they just kind of allow themselves to like, oh no, I've hit a wall, and they just like sit there because they haven't really prepared for it. And then there are people like me who I would like to think that I sit down and I think about a lot of different things that could happen in life, and all of the walls that could like show up. And as I'm thinking about all of those walls, and then I'm thinking about how I'm going to overcome them. How am I going to overcome this challenge if it were to pop up? Okay, this is something that's susceptible to show up in about 2 years. Oh, this is something to show up in about like 2 weeks, This is something that's probably going to show up in about 2 hours, How am I going to approach this? What's going to happen if this happens? And then I run this simulation in my head. I'm thinking now of like also Black Mirror, that episode, Hang the DJ, where if you haven't watched it yet, then you should probably go and see it first before you watch the rest of this. But at the same time, I don't think that I'm going to like say like too big of a spoiler, but essentially running a simulations, like 1,000 simulations or whatever, I don't really hit 1,000. I wouldn't really do that. I think that I can narrow it down pretty easily, but just kind of like looking at several like, situations or scenarios to see like what are the most likely to happen, and then you go with that one. If you're able to do that in your head first, then when you bring it to real life, then it's really helpful, So there's a quote that Antonia Dodge said in one of her things, and yeah, it pretty much says, she said that for the NI user, reality can be lived internally and totally assimilated before it happens. And I think that that's so totally true for me, because like I said, like, and I didn't even say all of the examples that I use this for, but for me it's like I can really live out a lot of different things in my head before I bring them into real life, and I contemplate them. If I'm about to even like tweet some things, I predict like, okay, who's probably going to respond to this? How are they going to respond? And it works a lot. There's also times that it doesn't work, you know. So I'm just going to say right now, I'm not always 100% accurate, if ever 100% accurate, but enough of a ballpark is good enough for me to be able to finesse when something unexpected happens. So I think through just about everything that I do, and I run the assimilation that way. I can anticipate what might happen, and I feel like if we learn to do this in real life, it could be pretty beneficial. And a lot of you probably already do this, but like, I'm just saying like, hey, maybe we can do more of this, you know? Maybe we can how do I say it? I'm thinking that maybe if we created more simulations in our heads, if we thought through a lot of our actions before taking action, then perhaps we would make a lot less mistakes. We wouldn't have to fall the first time before we're able to like learn from it. We're able to already make the mistake in our head before ever having to make the mistake physically. However, as I'm even saying that, I'm thinking of personality types such as like the ESPs, for example, ESTPs and ESFPs. They don't want to do that, and that's absolutely fair, because their superpower as SE dominance is to not run the assimilation. Although running an assimilation here and there does help, especially NI being your inferior function, but they kind of just want to like jump into it, you know, and their superpower pretty much is like they're so good with the finesse that they can pretty much take on things. But then if they try to run an assimilation too much because their NI is inferior, then it might not be as accurate. They will miss so many different holes that it'll end up probably being like a waste of time. So if you're an ESP that's watching this, you probably don't want to, you know, run a simulation and all of that anyway. And even I'm thinking of like ENPs possibly. They run the simulations, in my opinion. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm thinking of this properly, they run the simulations, but in different ways. They run the simulations for the fun of it. They run the simulations that might not even be like realistic, you know, like things that, you know, like, oh, well, that's just not gonna happen, like, you know. But it's kind of like, oh, but what if it happened, you know? What if we were able to do this? What if we were able to do that? Or what if this actually happened and stuff? And it's like, but it won't. But okay, sure, let's you know, joke around with it. And I think that, you know, NI users have that to an extent, but from what I've seen, NI users try to be like more realistic so they can prepare for what is coming. While NE users just like to like toy around with their intuition in that manner. And like I said, like NI users, they like to toy around sometimes when it comes to things like, you know, like talking about, you know, like the metaphysical, for example, and just seeing like, oh, what if we had like a past life, or we had past lives, and, you know, the reason why you're bearing all the suffering and weight in this life, even though you don't have any like trauma from earlier in your childhood, is because of a lot of the things that you've experienced in your past lives, and now they've all been like conglomerating and, you know, connecting, I don't know, stuff like that, you know. That's some, you know, that is some what ifs. But the thing is, with the NI user, it's like that could be true. We don't know if there's, you know, like a past life or anything. We don't really know for sure, you know. While the NE user is like, no, I know that that's probably not true, but I just want to still, like, you know, explore it anyway. So anyway, we're kind of going like a little bit off topic over there, but that's just something that I was thinking about today. I just wanted to throw out there. Do you guys run simulations? And if you do, how do you do it? How often do you do it? Is it hard for you? Are your simulations accurate a lot of times? I like to think of them as like playing golf, you know? The more that you play golf, the less times that you have to swing and hit the ball in order to get a hole-in-one, because you start becoming like more precise with your predictions, with how things will like be able to carry out. You start catching on to the patterns. And I mean, I don't know, like you might not have to be an NI user to be able to do this, like I said, but it's just something that I was thinking about, and I thought that I would come out and share, just in case if it's helpful for anyone. So yeah, that's my spontaneous speaking video for today. And leave your questions, comments, concerns. Also, be sure to check out the description to follow the Facebook. If you guys want coaching, be sure to check out the description for that too, for a link where you can schedule a session with me. Things have been up in the air recently, like, you know, with like my scheduling and all of that, and it's just been like strange, just a lot of things, life things, but I'm getting back on that ballpark and everything, and so yeah, if you want like a profiling session, then go ahead and like, you know, check out the link in the description, and like, you know, to verify your type. And if you want like, you know, coaching, then go ahead and check out the link in the description, you know, all of that. But yeah, I think that's about it. Continue to leave your comments, etc. Done.